Welcome for USA Today, and I'm here with Tim Wendel, who is a former firefighter with the Payson, Arizona Hotshots. That's the same kind of team that was killed in the Yarnell fire. He's going to talk to us about what it's like to be a part of a team like this and what we can learn from the fire. So Tim, tell me to start, what is a hotshot?
Hotshot or Hadley are the elite firefighters in the U.S. Forest Service. Smoke jumpers jump out of planes, but hotshots are on the ground. They're usually bigger units, equivalent, if you want to do a military comparison, to the Marines in the military.
Now, what kind of person is drawn to this work? What made you get into this?
Well, I got into it to do some research for a magazine piece I was working on at the time, but the draw among most of them is you get to work outside. It is a great summer employment. The money can be pretty good once you get into overtime and kind of working off forest situations. And frankly, the sense of adventure too. There's real sense of adventure of working on a fire line. You see some things you won't see anyplace else. I mean, like a ponderosa pine suddenly, going up, in flames is kind of spiritual in a way.
Wow. So what do these teams do to prepare for the kinds of things that they're going to encounter?
A lot of physical activity, a lot of getting in shape. I know on my unit you pretty much had to run a mile in less than 8 minutes, so you're probably better off running in like 7.5 minutes. Do like push-ups, chin-ups. I mean, the first half of every morning was pretty much working out. But it is a team function too. You have a great many kind of different types of tools employed, shovels, pulaskis, what they call brush hooks, and you tend to use them in different ways depending on what kind of terrain you're in, what kind of fire you're fighting in. So you do a lot of practicing as a team. How quickly can you put down a fire line? How quickly can you fell trees? Things like that. And often, that tends to be paramount when you're up against a real fire.
So speaking of the real fires, what kind of dangers are these firefighters encountering, and what's on the flip side, what's the safety record in being involved in a team like this?
Overall, the safety records are pretty good considering the situations that they're in. I think I haven't been on a fire line, working a fire in years. But frankly, I wouldn't really go back. I think it's kind of too dangerous. I think between global warming, I think some of, say, the structures or homes now being built on the edge of wilderness areas, because that's a great place to live, but when the fire goes up, hey, you got to protect those homes. I think we ask a lot of our firefighters these days, and it keeps going up and up. And unfortunately, we kind of keep coming back around to these unfortunate situations like Yarnell, where we're coming up on the anniversary of 1994 Storm King. 14 people died. I remember covering the 30-mile fire out northwest Washington. 4 people died, and it seems to go back all the way back to Young Men and Fire, which Norm Maclean popularized, the Man Gulch fire in 1949, where 15 died. So, it still kind of keeps coming around. I think the summer-to-summer track record is great. But somehow we've got to fix this situation, and maybe we're asking too much of these young firefighters on the front lines.
So what do you know about what just happened with the Yarnell fire?
I know little, Hadley, but what I do know is it seems like we had a major wind shift. And as soon as I read that this morning, it kind of creeped me out, because that's the worst case scenario. Is suddenly you think the wind's coming from a certain direction, you're kind of ready to fight fire in that way, you're figuring how strong the wind blows is going to determine how high the flame lengths are going to be, and since you kind of get your whole game face on to do it in this way. And if suddenly the wind flipped around as much as they're talking about and increased as much as they're talking about, that's a bad situation. That's the worst case scenario. When you're looking one direction, you're thinking you're doing a job this way, and suddenly it's coming from over here, and that's trouble.
So what do you think happens next in terms of what do we take away from this incident?
Well, part of me is a little jaded. I think what we're going to have hearings. We'll have a lot of words. We'll have a lot of things saying we'll up our safety standards and all this type of thing. Frankly, the safety standards that are on the books already that you have to memorize, frankly, as a hotshot, are good enough, in my opinion. I hope what happens here, Hadley, is that this empowers in a sense, the people directing the various crews. I think there's a real, at times, let's get the job done, let's go. And you get into situations that maybe aren't the best and are kind of dangerous. And I hope this empowers the individual kind of commanders, fire commanders, or squadron leaders to say, maybe no, maybe we're not going down into that valley, or maybe we're not going to do it quite that way. I was very lucky on my crew. I had a fire commander who would stand up, in a sense, to the fire bosses or leaders and would say, no, we're not doing that today. And I hope after this there's many more of them.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Tim, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And to keep following this story, go to usatoday.com.